Hey everyone, this is Gabrielle Jackson again, and today I am joined by Jason Parks, who is the owner of Media Captain based in Columbus, Ohio. And Jason has a really awesome story of how he started his company, kind of the journey that it took him to be there, and kind of that scrappy entrepreneurial mindset that it actually took for him to become a successful business owner. So thanks so much for joining us, Jason.
Yep, not a problem. Glad to be here.
So when you hear the word millennial entrepreneur, what comes to mind?
Obviously, someone who's pretty young and fresh, who's starting a business and kind of just going for it rather than working the traditional 9 to 5.
So you think of someone who's kind of outside of the bounds of what is more of an acceptable, maybe like more of an old school type approach to starting a business. But how did you start your business, and how would you say it's different than maybe someone your parents' age?
Yeah, for what I do, it's digital marketing, and I'm fortunate that business owners and CEOs they trust millennials. They actually want to work with the younger generation. So, I started the business on the side, and then kind of was just picking up clients from there. And yeah, that's how it got started. The company started to grow, and then I went full time.
So, I mean, you're making it just sound like it just kind of happened. And I mean, being an entrepreneur myself, I know that there's like a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. Lots of
hmm
sleepless nights, and lots of like, holy shit, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So, like, kind of walk us through that process a little bit about um, everything from like when you got the idea to start the company to when you finally realized that it was a viable business that you could actually survive off of.
Yeah, and so like you said, it wasn't an easy process. I mean, there were a lot of sleepless nights. Um, my background is in marketing, video production. I knew it was what I wanted to do. And right after when I graduated from college in 2010, I mean, the recession was, essentially at its peak. And so the easy thing to do was to get just, a 9 to 5 job, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do. So going into it, I had this plan, and I really stuck with the plan of getting clients on the side, having a realistic date of when I want to go full time, and then having a specific amount of clients join the company, I guess, to come on board where I could reach that point where I'd be able to sustain myself and go full time.
So, for the record, everybody, it didn't just happen. I mean, it sounds like you were like incredibly calculated about it. Like you had a plan, you had a mission, and you said like, I will be comfortable to make the jump. If I make X amount of money per month, or have X amount of clients. And I think that that's something that taking that sort of intentionality shows that you were serious about it. It wasn't just a hobby for you. It was something that you actually were pursuing. Did you have any sort of like business background or business training that you felt like you were prepared to start your own company?
Not necessarily business background, and when I hear that to start a company, I don't think you need to be a business major to start it. I did start several companies, like one when I was in high school, one when I was in college, of just hobbies that I ended up turning into a job and being able to make money off of, but no formal, business school background, no.
Yeah, I think that as a generation, we're kind of moving away from that. I think a lot of times we don't think that it's as necessary to go and to get a degree as it is for us to just kind of figure it out. I mean, when I decided I was going to start a company, I literally Googled how to start a company, and up popped all these resources. And I mean, yes, you kind of have to sift through what's crap and what's not. At the end of the day, like, I have so much more at my fingertips because of technology and this beautiful thing called Google, where we can actually look things up online. But where did you find kind of, whether it was like mentors or whether it was resources or other entrepreneurs in your life, that were really the most resourceful when it came to knowing even where do you start, really? Like, how do you just like be like,
Yeah.
I'm going to start a company today?
And so I think the most important thing is, obviously, when you're starting a company, you need to have a specific skill set that can, help somebody out. And so, like I was saying, my background was in video. So I worked for a digital video company in college, and the way that I got paid was based off of the amount of views and the amount of exposure that my videos got. So that forced me to, learn how to get the videos to rank high organically on Google, how to share them on social media, and a lot of the elements of like digital marketing that I do today. So the most important thing for me was the hands-on experience, because unless you're getting your hands dirty and actually doing it, that's the best and the fastest way to learn.
So you were chatting a little bit before about how you have kind of always just been prone to being an entrepreneur, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you are just kind of naturally like, how can I sell this, and how can I, optimize this, or how can I monetize what it is that I'm already doing? So would you consider yourself more of like a natural entrepreneur, or is this something that you just kind of fell into?
No, I'd say it's always like been in my blood. I've always had like a passion for entrepreneurship. When I was young, I'd be reading the business section of the newspaper, and so it's something that I've always had like a passion for, and something that I've enjoyed doing.
Yeah, it sounds like you were a really, weird kid. I'm just totally
Yeah.
kidding.
No, my girlfriend tells me that all the time. I don't read books for enjoyment. Like I'm always reading business books or books on marketing, and she thinks I'm weird for not reading just like regular books. But yeah, I mean
But I
that's
don't
what I
know, like
enjoy.
what are regular books? Like what did normal people ask me that all the time? They'll be like, well, they're like, oh, what are you reading right now? And it's just one of those things where I'm just like, I don't like I always have a book with me, right? So like what am I reading right now? Literally right next to me, it's Managing Millennials. Like I have this in my
Right.
purse all of the time, and I look like a freak if I like pull it out on Metro or something, because people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's fun reading for me. Like reading like the stocks news section. But one thing, we can just be weird together. One thing that I think many people will look at this next generation and they're thinking like, oh my gosh, like what is the future of entrepreneurship going to look like if every entrepreneur out there is essentially creating an app or starting an online business. Like you're in that space as well. Do you think that it's ever going to be super saturated with online tech startups and multimedia firms, or do you think that we're not going to be able to hit that cap?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've thought about this before, and I think the main issue is so many people that are trying to start an app, the chance of actually making money off of that, I mean, it's almost like hitting the lottery. So I think when you're doing something online, you have to ask yourself, how is this going to make money for other people? So in turn, that they pay me for it. So yeah, I mean, the online space is getting more competitive, but at the same time, more people continue to use it. I think I just saw a statistic that 80% of people, when they're searching for a company, will start on Google. So, I mean, if you have that skill set in search engine optimization, there's going to be that need even as the competition increases.
So you're working with companies right now, and is it really across industry, or is there one area that you really honed in on?
Yeah, no, it's across industry, and we're mainly like B2B, so we're just working with businesses. Yeah.
So you're rolling in and you're working with like the marketing team, or with, if it's a smaller firm, probably like, the top management or executives themselves, and you're, in your 20s and you're coming in, like how are they viewing you? Like do they take you seriously because you're young, or are they kind of thinking like, what does this guy really know?
Yeah, no, that's the coolest thing about it is that like I feel like any other industry, you need to be in it for 15 years and have had to work at this place or that place. But being young, they'd rather work with somebody young, because like you were saying, we've grown up with Google, and we were the first ones on Facebook. So there's nobody more that they trust than our generation in that.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely helpful. I mean, because you're in an industry where you have a natural comparative advantage because of your youth and your kind of exposure to the market. But because what it is that you're doing is all online, do you feel like your physical presence is ever going to not be necessary, or do you think that you're still going to be able to have those, going to a meeting, shaking their hand, still having that physical in-person component of your company?
Yeah, I mean, for what I do and like for the marketing strategies that we put together for businesses, I mean, we have to meet face to face. We have to learn the business. If they're manufacturing a product, we have to go there to see what they're, putting through the assembly line. So it's not as easy as, oh, everything's online. I mean, there's a huge part in dealing with the clients that involves a lot of just communication elements and a lot of face-to-face interactions. So even though like it's digital marketing, there's still a lot of components of it that are more traditional, I'd say.
See, I love that because I hear that all the time from people, especially in other generations, that almost have this fear that as a generation, when the economy really is completely, owned and operated by millennials, that we're gonna, do everything virtually, and it's like, hologram business. And I think at the end of the day, there's no way that you can really replace face-to-face interaction. There's no replacement for that, but I think that that's something that as a generation, sometimes I think we have to almost remind ourselves of, because sometimes it's like, no, it's okay, we'll just do a Skype meeting. But there's so much power, I think, kind of in that that personal interaction. With that in mind, like, how do you think globalization is going to start changing the way that we're doing business?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so like specifically within your field, I mean, because you said that, yeah, like you can do everything online, but you still need to have that physical presence as well. Like, do you think that, like, are you seeing an impact from globalization just of having a broader perspective on, how even growing your brand? I mean, do you have companies that you're working with that aren't located locally as well?
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely, I mean, we have clients from all over just because we run like a lot of advertising campaigns and have a lot of different marketing efforts to like get clients from all over. But you start to see that people, I mean, we have a higher close rate, a better chance of closing when we can meet face to face. So even though we can take clients on essentially anywhere, it's people still prefer to work with companies that are local and nearby and can swing by if they have a question. So even though that it's nice that we can like bring in new business from all over, there still definitely is a personal element to it.
So currently you have, what, 4 people on staff?
Mm-hmm.
So how, are they all millennials?
Yeah.
So how has that been, owning and operating a company with a bunch of people just like you?
It's great. I mean, there's so much like enthusiasm, and I think that they kind of have like the same mindset towards the clients, and we're able to get work done really fast. And I mean, everything's good. And then, I think the main thing is like I'm the one that's communicating a lot with the clients, and yeah, I mean, for the most part, I really can't think of any downside to it. I think it's great having the team of all millennials.
Like, there's nothing wrong. Everybody should hire all millennials all the time. We're awesome. That's
yeah, you'll have to. We're like launching our new website next week. You'll have to check it out because it's very like it focuses a lot on all the millennials and the personality of it. So yeah, I mean that's kind of our marketing strategy. We're proud of it and we're happy to show it off.
So are most of the people on your team your friends? Like, how did you build that team, and how important is it for you to kind of feel like you're all in it to the same level?
No, I don't hire my friends. But yeah, no, I mean I'll post ads online, and it's crazy for like the industry that I'm in. If I'm looking for somebody to be a social marketing strategist, I'll get 100 resumes or 100 applications. So no, I mean I just I do a kind of a rigorous like hiring process, but everybody just goes through a round of interviews, and then I pick the best candidates for it.
You're an equal opportunity employer, very compliant.
Right. Yeah.
Those are all the things that you realize, like, that as you're hiring people, you're like, what in the world does it mean? Like, what? Like, how? There's so many different regulations. I had no clue all of this stuff. Yet again, that's what Google's for, right? But I'm
Right.
glad that you pointed that out, because I think naturally as millennials, like, we want to do stuff with our friends. Like, I am very entrepreneurial, and it seems like every single time that I'm with my friends, like, we'll like start a business. Like, I was out to dinner with some girlfriends last night. We were like, let's start this business, or let's do this, or let's think of these different ways that we can work together. But you have to kind of come at it from a very different mindset of being a business owner. It's like there's lines that you have to then draw. And I think a lot of times as young people, especially as millennials, like we're so team oriented. We're like, let's do everything together, right? Like we were talking a little bit before we got on about how we both play tennis. And I played team tennis for years, and so I'm always like that. Let's all do this together. And how many people can we get on the team and really feel like there's buy-in in that respect. But regarding your company, like where do you see in the next 5 years? Where do you see it growing?
I mean, it's grown every year, and I just see it like continuing to get larger, not grow like too fast, but kind of organically and naturally. And we have like a good thing going. We rank well on Google for a lot of like keywords, and we're able to, rank up there with a lot of large digital agencies here in Ohio. So just grow at like a natural level, and if we can handle it, bring on new accounts.
So do you have kind of a team, or at least one person who you would consider your mentor who's helping you kind of navigate some of these waters?
I mean, I have like mentors, but not like a digital marketing mentor or something, the field that I'm in. Like I always meet with people across various industries. I just had a meeting with the CEO of a trucking company the other week. So I like getting different perspectives. But for the digital marketing, it's just, I mean, everything's you referenced this earlier, everything's at our fingertips and at our disposal. And I mean, you can read and learn, but also like the great thing for me is for the SEO, for the paid advertising, for all of that, I've been able to test that out on my site, because I have my own site and my own business. And so I'm, been learning and always testing new things.
Yeah, I think that concept of testing, like testing small and testing often, and like not being afraid of failure. And that's the concept of failure, I think, is one thing that as millennials we don't really like to talk about. Like we're always called the trophy generation, right? Like show up and get a trophy and like a hug because like you're cute. But like, what does failure mean to you? Like, how do you relate to failure in your life and in your business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not afraid of failure. Like the great thing with digital is you can test something out, and in 2 weeks you can know whether or not it fails. And I'd rather be able to test something and learn quickly and potentially fail, but like if you hit a home run, it's going to outweigh all of those failures. So I mean, I'm all about testing. All of our clients, we're always testing out different projects for them, and I think that's one of the things that they like about working with our company.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate that, because I think celebrating failure, like sometimes so I have this group called the Side Hustlers Breakfast Club, and every single month we get together and we talk about our successes and our failures, and we've got this thing called my biggest fail, and it's like celebrating the suck. Like, what in the world did you suck at this month? And like, man, that's awesome. Like, way to fall flat on your face. Like, way to like go after that client and sound like an idiot. Like, because you can't be afraid of trying something new, because then you're just going to be completely, stagnant and not actually moving forward. But I also appreciate. Go ahead.
I think it's funny because everybody, I mean, you look at Facebook, you look at Instagram, everything everybody posts is all about like success, and it's nothing about failure. But for me, I mean, just like having a close a network of people that you're close with, that you can talk about the failures, it's very good to be able to express yourself. And like you said, you shouldn't be hiding the failures. You should be talking about it and learning on ways to improve from it.
So I have to ask you this question because, and I didn't say this before, I found out about you through Success Magazine, which I'm like a huge fan of, by the way. But so I saw something that Jason had kind of been featured in regarding that. So I have to ask you, because you're in Success, what does success mean to you?
Success to me just means ultimately like being happy in what you do for a living. I mean, I'm like excited to go into work every day, and that ultimately I would classify it as success, because that job I was working full time, I dreaded going into the office. and each day would seem like a million hours. And now, I'm excited to go to work. I have ideas flowing through my head all the time. So I would say success is just finding something that, that you like to do, and, yeah, going for it, I guess.
Awesome. So now we are in my favorite part, which is the lightning round of questions. And so I'm going to ask you just a series of questions, and feel free to just answer them with the thing that comes to mind first. So are you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
You sound terrified. It's okay. So in the spirit of suck, what is the biggest failure that you've had professionally in the last 5 years?
In the last 5 years, we've had clients that have dropped off, or a website that they weren't happy with. So I would just say anytime a client drops off, it's not very often, but I'd say that's always like the biggest suck.
So what would you say is the best piece of advice that you've gotten last year?
Last year, to always be like, even if the business is going well, to always be looking for new business, because it almost goes in cycles. And if you're always like trying to improve, even when things are going well, once there's kind of a downside, you'll be prepared for that. So that was good advice.
That's good. All right. So the next one is, what books are you reading right now?
I just read one I'm reading one right now from David Ogilvy, the father of advertising, and it's his like famous book on marketing. So I'm almost done with that, and that's what I'm reading right now.
That's awesome. All right, final question. It's kind of weird, but it's one of my favorites.
All right.
You can consider yourself warned. So if the 13-year-old version of you met you today, what would he think about what it is that you do for a living?
Oh, I've thought about that before, and I think he would just almost be like, because when I was 13, I wanted to be a sports reporter and a sports broadcaster, and if I knew that I was like building websites and doing search engine optimization, I'd be like, who is this guy? I don't think the 13-year-old would be surprised that, I have like a business, because like I've said, I've always had like an entrepreneurial spirit, but I think he'd be a little surprised at the industry that I'm in, and how, that's kind of how that's happened.
It's like my favorite question to ask people, because it's so ironic. You're like, I don't know, like it's just, I don't know, wherever I was, more than a decade ago. But Jason, thank you so much for joining us. And one thing I forgot to ask you, so the Media Captain, that's the name of your company. How in the world did you come up with that name?
Everybody, yeah, it's funny, because that's always the question that I get asked. And when I look at marketing companies, I kind of looked at the competition, and everybody's name is like so weird and it's not memorable. And I wanted a name where, let's say somebody was trying to decide between my company and 3 other companies, they'd actually remember my name. And I think it worked, because everybody, is always asking how I came up with the names. So I just looked for like a lot of different domain names that were available, and it was available, and that's kind of how it happened.
Well, it is definitely very memorable, but thanks so much for joining us, sharing with us a little bit about your story, and giving us some insight not only about you and your journey, but also about your company as well. So thanks.
Yep, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.